Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Economic Forecast Lunch with Pierre Cléroux, Vice President and Chief Economist of the Business Development Bank of Canada. I am Jazrup Gosel. I'm the interim spokesperson and policy and research manager at the Surrey Board of Trade. And I want to thank you all for your support of Surrey and White Rock's business organizations. Today's event is co-hosted with the South Surrey and White Rock Chamber of Commerce. If you haven't already heard, the Chamber and Board of Trade are merging. We're going to become the Surrey and White Rock Board of Trade. We're currently awaiting federal government approval and authorization, which we anticipate this spring. And together we'll be a stronger, more vibrant, more vocal voice for local businesses. I would like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of the Coast Salish people, specifically the Kwantlen, Katzie, Kaikut, Semiahmoo, and Tsawwassen First Nations. As well, I would like to acknowledge the Inuit and Métis Nations people who live and work on these territories. Well, today's event would not be possible without the support of our sponsors. Our lunch sponsor is Invest Vancouver, a service of Metro Vancouver. Supporting sponsor, BDC, the Business Development Bank of Canada. Our progress partners, the Chamber of Commerce Group Insurance Plan by S&F Group Benefits, the law firm of Faskin, Focus College, and Western Community College. Round of applause for our sponsors. Thank you very much. And I would also like to welcome some special guests in the audience. We have City of Surrey Councillor Linda Annis in the room. Thank you for being here. And also help me welcome some of the Surrey Board of Trade directors here with us today. We have Rory Morgan, Surrey Board of Trade Chair, KSW Lawyers. David Benet, DAB Strategies. We have John Mitchner, the Port of Bellingham. Mike Spees, Ashdown Capital. And Baljit Dhaliwal, TJ's Education and Safety Training Corp. The Surrey Board of Trade and South Surrey and White Rock Chamber of Commerce are independent and non-profit organizations under the Federal Ministry of Economic Development and are a concierge of connections for Surrey and White Rock business, where we deliver diversified service portfolio of business, development, international trade, government relations, and workforce development. We support business and attract business to the City of Surrey and to the City of White Rock. The Surrey Board of Trade is one of the top 5 largest boards of trades and chambers of commerce across 430 across Canada. Surrey's business community is diverse, and at the heart of this community are small and medium-sized businesses. These businesses are truly the backbone of not only Surrey's economy, but all of Canada's. And in the current geopolitical climate, our businesses face many threats, some domestic and some international, but our business community is resilient. We must all remain cognizant of the changing relationship with partners we have across the world and ensure we are diversifying and protecting ourselves from tumultuous situations. But we must also remain vigilant and ensure we are informed and aware of what our political leaders are doing so that we have a thriving business community and an economy that allows for growth and prosperity. We must remain hopeful that we have and will be able to weather any storm that comes our way. And we need to be able to lean on organizations like the Surrey Board of Trade, the South Surrey White Rock Chamber of Commerce, Invest Vancouver, and BDC to support our business community. Now I would like to welcome Jackie Griffiths, President of Invest Vancouver and our lunch sponsor.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here amongst friends. I'm Jackie Griffiths, President of Invest Vancouver. We are the Regional Economic Development Service who work on behalf of 21 municipalities One Treaty First Nation, and the electoral area within Metro Vancouver. I also want to acknowledge the 10 local First Nations on whose lands the Metro Vancouver region is located. I want to celebrate their distinct histories, language, and cultures. It really is an honor to be here as we hear from Pierre Cléroux in terms of what we need to know both for today and tomorrow. And Pierre, I'm going to guess that you've rewritten your presentation probably about 3 or 4 times in the last 48 hours. It's been an emotional roller coaster in many ways. It's been the longest January that I can recall, and I've lived through a few Januaries in my life. No matter how the current situation resolves itself, there's one thing that's clear, and Jasroop referenced it as well. We need a collective strategy. We need to be more diversified, and foreign direct investment will be a critical part of that strategy. And that's exactly where Invest Vancouver is focused, on attracting foreign direct investment, the right kind of foreign direct investment, to support all the municipalities within the region. Did you know that foreign direct investment accounts for almost 350,000 jobs in British Columbia? When you think about the projections that are in place and the implications that could occur as a result of tariffs, the BC government is talking about the potential of a job loss of 120,000 jobs, an impact to our BC economy of almost $70 billion. You put that with what we know in terms of how much the jobs that flow from multinationals are helping to strengthen our economy, and it really does make the case for why we need to be focused in on the right international markets and attracting the right investment. By doing that together, we'll be in a much stronger position when it comes to building out that strong, resilient economy that supports economics, it supports employment, and also supports small, medium enterprises within the Metro Vancouver region. When it comes to the current challenges, our collective efforts have never been more important. And FDI isn't just about jobs, it's also about innovation and resilience and what it's going to take to make sure that we stay competitive. And in the current situation, we need to be looking to new markets like Europe, Asia, and beyond. We are competing with other major markets in Canada, such as Toronto and Montreal. In fact, Montreal works collectively as a group of 82 municipalities to make sure that they are competing globally to attract the right type of foreign direct investment into their region. I really do believe that together we are well positioned to compete as a region and remain strong and resilient. Even in the face of this existential economic crisis, there is tremendous opportunity. So let's seize the moment and work together for a stronger, more vibrant economy for today and tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jackie. Now, please welcome Shehryar Gowrie, Business Center Manager, Fraser Valley Business Development Bank of Canada, to introduce our keynote speaker this afternoon.
Thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather today is the unceded territory of the Coast Salish peoples, including the Katzie, Kwantlen, and Semiahmoo First Nations. We honor all the First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people and their valuable past and present contributions to our land. My name is Shehryar Gowrie, and I'm the Business Center Manager at BDC. From our Surrey office, we support entrepreneurs in Surrey, Delta, and Langley territories. For those of you who are not familiar with BDC, BDC is the bank for entrepreneurs. We work with over 100,000 businesses across the country, many here in BC, in all sectors and at all stages of growth. We provide financing through our term loans, which is our core offering to Canadian businesses, capital investment, which includes specialized capital such as venture, as well as growth and transition capital, and through advisory services. We offer practical, proven advice to help entrepreneurs grow their businesses and be more productive, more profitable, and more competitive. Our unwavering support for entrepreneurs remains steadfast, regardless of whether times are good or challenging. Speaking of challenges, many of us are concerned about the potential impacts of US tariffs. Although they have been averted for now, the threat still looms. To help you navigate the situation, BDC has prepared a variety of resources and tools designed to mitigate the effects of any future tariff implementations. These resources are available on our website, bdc.ca, and we will regularly update them to meet your needs and help you make the best possible decisions for your business. BDC will continue to support entrepreneurs as we did during COVID and other challenging times in the past. So please feel free to speak with me or my colleagues here who are here today on table number 4, how we can assist. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce Pierre Cléroux. Since 2012, Pierre has been the driving force behind BDC's economic research as the Vice President Research and BDC's Chief Economist. He leads a team of experts who delve into economic data to uncover trends that shape the future of Canadian entrepreneurs. Pierre is not just an economist. He's a masterful speaker who translates complex economic concepts into actionable insights for business owners. His role extends beyond analysis as he provides invaluable economic advice to the bank's senior management and oversees all marketing and industry research activities. What sets Pierre apart is his ability to speak the language of entrepreneurs. His insights resonate deeply with business owners, making him an important ally in navigating the economic landscape. We are incredibly fortunate to have him with us today. Help me welcome Pierre Cléroux.
Good afternoon, everybody. I think you would agree with me, it's a good time to talk about the economy, especially with what happened over the last few days. And you're right, Jackie, we changed our presentation a few times since Saturday. And the good news is I'm using the one from Friday. So the title is Growth Despite Everything. And what I'm going to try to convince you in the next few minutes is despite everything you read and you hear on the news, the Canadian economy and the BC economy will have positive growth in 2025. So first I'm going to talk about the Canadian economy, and after that move to the BC economy. And the last part, I want to talk very briefly about how businesses can manage through uncertainty that we have right now. So let's start with the Canadian economy. I'm not sure if the clicker is working. Oh, okay, sorry about that. So over the last few days, we forget that beside export, which represent 20% of our economy, there's 80% of the economy. And this 80% of the economy is actually performing quite well. And the reason for that is interest rates are going down. And this is going to help Canada and also BC. So there's a number of good news before we talked about the less good news. First of all, we are out of this period of time where interest rate has been increasing over the last 2 years. So you remember 2022, the Bank of Canada increased interest rate rapidly to slow down inflation, and that slowed down the Canadian economy. As you can see from the graph, you can see the Canadian economy really slowed down from 2022 up to now. The good news is we didn't have a recession. The economy went down to almost 1% growth, which is below the potential growth of the economy. But we were resilient, and the economy actually is picking up again as interest rate is going down. The other good news is inflation is back on track. Inflation is now 1.8%, which is the target of the Bank of Canada, and has been low for the last few months. So that means that we're back to price stability. So that was the objective of the Bank of Canada. So there's a number of good news here. The first one is for business. Remember in 21, 22, when prices were fluctuating a lot, it was hard to manage a business. Well, this time is gone. So we believe that price will stay stable for the next few years. There's no reason for inflation to come back. That's another good news is because inflation is under control, well, the Bank of Canada is able to reduce interest rate. They have reduced interest rate very rapidly in the last 6 months. And now the policy rate is at 3%, much lower than even 6 months ago. And they will continue to reduce interest rate because inflation is under control. So we are expecting to see the policy rate around at 2.5% probably in the summer of 2025. So this is the good news part. Obviously, there's a lot of uncertainty. And these two factors that are uncertain for us. The first one is immigration. The Canadian government has reduced the level of immigration, especially for non-permanent residents, which include temporary workers. So they are going to reduce the threshold by 500,000 in 2025 and another 500,000 in 2026. So 1 million less non-permanent residents in Canada. That will tighten the job market. A lot of businesses are using temporary workers as the job market is already very tight. So that's the first limit to the growth this year. And the second limit, of course, is the one you know, is the tariff that was announced on February 1st, and they were postponed yesterday. So this has the potential to have quite a negative impact on the economy. But for now, there's no tariff, but there's a lot of uncertainty. And this uncertainty is enough to slow down the Canadian economy. So on one side, you have lower interest rate that will stimulate consumption and real estate. On the other side, you have uncertainty that will limit this growth. So what should we expect for the next 12 months? Well, the first thing we'll see more consumption, and it's already happening. Last number we have, the third quarter of 2024, Canadians have been buying more. Consumption has been increasing because of lower interest rate. And when the Bank of Canada asked Canadians over the last few weeks, are you going to spend more in 2025? Well, the response is yes. In many different sectors of the economy, Canadians are going to spend more this year because lower interest rate help them to spend more. Almost 40% of Canadians have a flexible mortgage rate. So each time there's a reduction of the policy rate, they have more money in their pocket. Second good reason is their income has been increasing. The disposable income of Canadians has been increasing every quarter. The disposable income is all the income that people have from salary, from pension, from investment, from government program, minus the tax that we pay. So that's the money we have in our pocket. And in Canada, this income has been increasing. So people have more money. Over the last 2 years, they use it to pay their mortgages. But as interest rate is going down, they will have more flexibility. There's also a lot of savings in Canada. Canadians have been cautious. They have $123 billion in their bank account, not as investment in their current account. That's a lot of money. People have been saving for better time. The better time is here. With lower interest rate, they are more confident, so we are expecting to see more consumption. Another sector that is going to benefit from lower interest rate is the housing market. We already see over the last few months in Canada, the number of sales has been increasing. So in 2025, we should go back to more activities in the housing market. If you look at the graph, look at the 2020, 2021, the level of sales was much higher until interest rate increased, and that slowed down the housing market. Well, now that interest rate is going down, we should see more activity. But of course, uncertainty is going to have a negative impact on business investment. Business investment has been slowing down over the last 2 years because of higher interest rate. They will stay down. because of this uncertainty that we have. We do surveys on investment intention, and we can see that a lot of people are cautious right now, rightly so. We're not sure what will happen. So this uncertainty, that's how it translates to the economy right now. Lower business investment. Also, our export has been performing very well, but of course, with the situation, we're not sure how this will have an impact on our export. So again, on one side, you have lower interest rate that will stimulate consumption, the housing market. On the other side, what's happening right now is having a negative impact on business investment and also on export. So what does it mean for the economy? Well, our forecast for this year is 1.5% growth, which is modest growth. It should be higher. 6 months ago, our forecast for 2025 was 2% growth. But this uncertainty is going to limit the growth of the Canadian economy. Nevertheless, despite everything, we'll have positive growth. And actually, growth is going to be a bit higher than last year. So we're not back to the pre-pandemic level, where we had growth in Canada over around 3%. We're going to have 1.5. But this is still positive growth. This is not a recession. The economy is still growing. Part of the economy is growing. And this year, consumption is going to be the driver of this growth. British Columbia now. The higher interest rate had really a negative impact on the British economy, the British Columbia economy over the last 2 years. And the main reason is the mortgage rate here, the mortgage level is the highest in the country. So when you increase interest rate, you have a bigger negative impact on people in BC because mortgages are bigger. The interesting thing is when you reduce interest rate, you have a positive impact. So over the last 2 years, you can see in British Columbia, the economy has really slowed down. And that's the negative impact of higher interest rate. It did have an impact on consumption, also on the housing market. Growth in last year was less than 1%. But 2025, we are reversing the situation. Lower interest rate is going to help consumption. It's going to help the housing market as well. So this is the two sectors that we believe, consumption and housing market, is going to stimulate the economy in British Columbia as well. So for example, we already saw that the last quarter of 2024, consumption has been increasing in the province. So for the first time since 2 years, we saw more consumption. And as in 2025, we should see more consumption as well. One of the two reasons why we are optimistic about that: first, the unemployment rate is low. BC has the second lowest unemployment rate in Canada. So the job market is solid. The job market is good. And the disposable income in BC is also increasing. Job market is good, salaries are increasing, so people have more money in their pocket. And like I said, when the interest rate is going down, well, they have more money to spend for the economy. The real estate market is also the market that is improving. This is the growth per quarter of the real estate market in BC. If you look at the last number, last quarter of 2024, the number of sales in the real estate market has increased by 11.5% in 1 quarter. So as interest rate is going down, we can see more activities in the housing market, which is 20% of the BC economy. And also a few other factors. Tourism is back. Actually, the number of American tourism is really increasing. We're much higher now than before the pandemic. And finally, natural gas production is really increasing. The LNG project is almost done, so we're going to export much more natural gas than in the past. It's a 10-year project, $40 billion investment. Finally, we will be able to export more natural gas around the world, not only in the US. This is more for the Asian market. So there's a lot of positive aspect, but uncertainty is also going to have a negative impact, mostly on investment. Our latest research is showing that when we ask small business, are you going to invest in the next 12 months? Well, as you can see, the number is down compared to 3 months ago. So this is not surprising. With all the uncertainty, businesses are cautious. They're waiting to see what will happen. And this is going to have a limited impact on the economy. So growth for this year in British Columbia is going to be 1.4%, which is better growth than the last 2 years. And the reason is lower interest rate. Consumption and the housing market are going to drive the growth in the province. So the last point I want to make is how do we manage uncertainty? There's no doubt the last 2 days has been really stressful. And uncertainty is not gone. It's going to remain with us, probably for the next few months, and maybe for the next 4 years. So how do we manage that? Well, there's some academic who measure the uncertainty in Canada. You can see we are at a peak, almost as high as the pandemic, much higher than other events we had in the past. So as businesses, we have to stay calm, but we have to prepare for that. This is the 3 solutions or the 3 strategies that we are proposing at BDC. First of all, especially if you are exporting or if you are selling to exporters, you should have a plan. You should design different scenarios. And don't hesitate to ask around, ask experts, ask people to advise you what will be the best scenario in case that we have tariff imposed on Canada. Second, if you are exporting, or even if you buy from the US, you should look at diversifying your market on both sides. Because if we have tariff imposed on Canada, Canada will respond. And that could have an impact on what you buy from the US as well. So it's a good time to look at strategy. This other market, the US market is a great market. It's the #1 economy. It's 2 hours away. There's no doubt about that. And that's the reason why 75% of our exports are going south of the border. But there's also other markets. We have been trading a lot in Canada, north-south, because we have been a free trade agreement for the last 30 years. But now, with the uncertainty, is also a good time to look west to east, or to look at other markets. By the way, British Columbia is the only province who exports so much to Asia. So only 50% of BC export are going to the US, because Asia is a much more important partner than in the rest of the country. And finally, the last one, probably the most important one, is make sure you have a good financial situation. When there's uncertainty, when there's change in the economy, having a good cash flow position is key. So it's important right now to think about this, to look at this, to build your ability to be able to be agile. Whatever will happen in the next few months, you should be ready for that. So in conclusion, despite everything, the fundamentals of the Canadian and the BC economy are solid. Inflation is down at 1.8%. Interest rates are decreasing, and they will be around 2.5% in the summer. The unemployment rate, both in BC and Canada, are relatively low. We have a very solid job market. So we are in a good, solid position. But there's uncertainty out there. Unfortunately, I cannot tell you what will happen in 4 months in terms of tariff. Nobody knows. Maybe one person knows. That's it. But even, we're not sure. But it's important to remember that although export is very important for Canada and BC, it's 20% of the economy. There's another 80% of the economy which will continue to grow. So keep that in mind. I think just the most important part is to be prepared. And I think we believe that the Canadian economy will continue to grow despite everything. I'm going to stop here. We'll be happy to take your questions.
Thank you very much, Pierre. So I want to reiterate that for businesses in this room that will be watching this recording later, visit bdc.ca for information on how to navigate tariffs, how to ensure that your business is ready in case in a couple of months, in 1 month, in a couple of weeks, who knows, if tariffs are imposed, that you are prepared and you have the knowledge to navigate those times. So right now I will call for questions. There is a microphone in the center of the room there. If you have a question, please do go to the microphone and please state your name, your company, and then ask your question. And please do be brief and respectful. And it is on now, so go ahead. But I'm going to start us off, if you don't mind. You had mentioned that unemployment rate is low in BC, especially. As well, the immigration changes will tighten the job market further. What impact will that have on unemployment, and what would that mean for our economy?
Over the last few years, we've got a lot of immigration in Canada, and that's the case in British Columbia as well. So that compensated for the fact that there's a lot of people leaving the job market. We have an aging population in Canada. I'm sure you realize that. What it means that more and more people are leaving the job market to retire. For example, in Canada, it's 350,000 Canadians who left the job market to retire in the last 12 months. This is 3 times what we used to see. That's the baby boomers. People who are over 55, there's a lot of them, and they're leaving the job market. That made the job market very tight. As the number of temporary workers is going to decrease, well, the job market is going to be even more tight. And what does it mean? It's going to be more difficult to recruit people, and it would put pressure on salary. You have, as business people, experienced a lot of pressure on salary over the last 4 years. And unfortunately, this is not over. So keep that in mind when you plan for your business. The job market will remain tight. Pressure on salary will be there. There's no magic solution. One of the solutions is automation, investing in technology. Technology doesn't replace people, but it could replace some tasks inside your business. And that's actually the best strategy to respond to these job market tightening that we see.
Thank you very much. And we have a question. Please, sir.
Yes, thank you. Gordon Houston of the iPhone Warranty. I'd just be interested to know your comments on corporate debt load and personal debt load.
Very good question. On the business side, it's actually pretty good. We went through the higher interest rate without too much pain on the business side. It was more difficult on smaller businesses, and the reason they pay much more interest rate than bigger businesses. I will give you, last year, the Bank of Canada asked us to look at this situation, at the impact of higher interest rate on business. We were surprised. The average interest rate paid on a $1 million loan or more is 6.5%. The average interest rate paid on a loan below 100,000 is 13%. So the business situation is good, but smaller businesses struggle more with higher interest rate over the last 2 years. The good news is most small business have a flexible rate. So as interest rate is going down, well, they see the benefit of that. So the worst is probably over. On the consumer side, our debt level as Canadian is high. But we, as economists, we didn't worry too much because most of the debt is mortgages. It's not like Canadians has been, spending or wasting money. They bought bigger house, and you're well positioned here to understand that housing prices has been increasing. So our mortgages are high. This is not a problem as long as people have a job. So we're not worried about this. But of course, with the perspective of tariff, this is a bit more worrisome because with tariff would come job loss, and that's how it becomes a problem. So we're not there yet, and actually I don't think we'll have a lot of tariff, but it's definitely a more concern today, I would say, than 3 months ago.
Thank you very much. As we wait for our next person with a question, as an economist, speaking strictly in your profession, what do you think of Canada's response to President Trump? And do you think that there should have been an alternative response rather than imposing tariffs?
I think politically, I don't think Canada could have done anything different. I think one country imposed tariff on you, every other countries around the world are responding the same way. Canada was choosing products that will have the biggest damage on the US economy without not hurting too much the Canadian economy. So that's the right strategy. But I think that's the strategy. The China reacted to the tariff today actually by imposing tariff on the US. So this is what countries are doing. I think we should also, beside that, favor interprovincial trade. There's a lot of barriers between provinces. In the past, the reason was to protect jobs. Every province wanted to protect their own job. But now the unemployment rate is low across the country. So there's no need to protect jobs as much as in the past. So there's a good opportunity right now to have a total free trade in Canada. That's what I think government, it's not only the federal government, it's all governments. They should work on that.
Thank you, Pierre. And we have been calling for the removal of interprovincial trade barriers for quite some time. We note that being able to sell to your neighbors is important, and it also helps protect yourself from external threats like tariffs, like Trump's imposing. Just a question at the mic. Go ahead, please.
Good. My name is Harleen, and I'm here with Dennis Legacy. So, as you mentioned, there's been a change in the immigration policy on the federal level. In addition, we've noticed pressure on rental market rates, specifically in the Vancouver and Toronto markets. Has BDC in its forecast implemented these items into what they decided for the growth of the housing, considering that housing makes up 20% of the leasing market?
Yeah. Yes, we did. Especially, I would say, lower level of immigration make us reduce our forecast for growth. Because when businesses don't have the manpower they need, it's actually limiting their growth. So there's two reasons why our forecast is not as high as it should be, is the uncertainty around tariff, but also the limitation on immigration. We believe that lower interest rate is going to stimulate the construction across the country, including in BC in 2025, 2026. It's a bit slow to start. We thought that we'll start a little bit faster, but actually housing starts are improving compared to the 2 years of interest rate. So that should make it easier for rental, but it will take time.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Greg from Ghost Capital Advisors. I've got two questions. The first one, do you foresee impact on foreign investment in Canada with a decreasing environment of interest rates? And the second question, do you foresee a scenario where the Bank of Canada re-implements quantitative easing?
That's two good questions. I think the uncertainty is not good for attracting investment right now. I think it's everybody who is investing in Canada or foreign investment, everybody wants to see what will happen, what will be the end. So I think this is going to slow down our foreign investment. As for the Bank of Canada, right now they are still have a monetary policy they are easing their monetary policy. They will see what will happen. I believe that even if we have tariff and this increase inflation, I think they will reduce interest rate because they will need to stimulate to support the Canadian economy. I know their mandate is to control inflation, but this will be an exceptional situation. So I think they will continue to ease their policy as the economy, as inflation is under control. If we have a shock coming from tariff, well, I think they will reduce interest rate even faster.
Thank you very much. Please.
I'm Donald from BDC. I have two questions. The first one is, where do you see the Canadian dollar in the medium term and long term? A year out, 2 years out. And my second question is, if you had the year of the next Prime Minister, what would you advise in terms of promoting growth, given that the Canadian population is growing at the same speed as a forecasted growth, so our relative standard of living is dropping relative to
Two very good questions. The dollar is low right now, 70 cents this morning. It dropped to 68 on Sunday from the Asian market. Tariff is having a negative impact on our dollar. There's two reasons why the dollar dropped from 75 cents in October to what it is now. The uncertainty around tariff, but also the fact that the Bank of Canada is reducing its policy rate much faster than the Fed. So those two factors are having a negative impact. The reason why the Bank of Canada is reducing interest rate faster is the US economy is performing very well, very strong. The unemployment rate is 4%. The economy is running at full capacity. Inflation is still high at 2.6%. So the central banks in the US, the Fed, is waiting to reduce interest rate. There's no pressure to reduce interest rate. The Bank of Canada, the economy has been a bit weaker, so they have reduced interest rate. So for the next 12 months, we believe the Canadian dollar will remain low, remain around 70 cents, because uncertainty will remain, and also because it will take some time before the Fed reduces interest rate. You know, what happened on Saturday is even more difficult to understand because the US economy is performing extremely well. They are at full capacity, full employment. The growth this year is going to be around 2.53%. So there's no reason for anybody to change that. But that's explaining why our dollar is going to remain a bit lower. And I'm sorry, I forgot the second question.
If you could restate the question.
Yeah, so if you had the next Prime Minister,
we have a number of challenges in Canada. We just realized that we are too concentrated on one trade partner. I think we knew that before, but it really hit us last weekend. So we should diversify. You know, this US market is probably the best market in the world, but Europe is also 500 million people, and it's also a very good market. Asia, which is closer to BC, it's also a growing market. So we should diversify. We should, like I said, break the barriers across provinces in Canada. You know, we have a young economist in my group. I mean, he's from Europe, and he look at it. It's easier for countries in Europe to trade between each other than for provinces to trade between each other in Canada. This doesn't make sense. We need a free trade agreement. I remember a few years ago, I was in Cleroux, visited some wineries, and they wouldn't ship any wine to Montreal because it's illegal. I mean, this is ridiculous. It's the same country. So this is just an example, but we need a free trade agreement. And the last one, we need to improve our productivity. In the last 4 years, Canada's productivity has not increased. We are the only country in the G7 that's the case. Actually, if you look at Canada and the US productivity is like this, and Canada is flat. So we need to reduce the burden on doing business in Canada. We need to encourage businesses to invest more in technology, in automation, to bring our productivity up. And not only because we want to raise our standard of living, but also because we have a very tight job market. So there's a good opportunity to do that now. There's a good incentive for business to invest more. And governments should do their part. It's becoming very complex, very costly to do business in Canada. We should really focus more on making it easier.
Thank you. And just to piggyback off of that question about a low dollar, that'll likely enhance our ability to export to different markets as well, cheaper for them to buy our product. And you've mentioned Asia, Europe as potential trading partners. What about Africa? That hasn't been as mentioned in recent memory.
It's a growing market. The standard of living is lower than, for example, Europe. So the opportunities is not the same, but it's a growing market, so we should look at that as well. But I would say, if you want to diversify from the US, number one should be probably Europe, because it's same size market, 500 million people, is actually bigger. The standard of living is very elevated. So for what we produce in Canada, high value, costly products, it's the best market after the US. The US is just because it's right beside us. And we have been trading with them for 30 years because we had a free trade agreement. So it's an easy market. But what we learn is sometimes you have to protect yourself by being more diversified.
And you mentioned that it's easier for countries within Europe to trade between each other. So we sell, for example, to France. They can then, there's supply chain routes available to us or to our businesses to get it to the rest of the European market as well.
Yes.
Seems like. That's great to know. Please, go ahead.
Hi there, Pretty Brian from the Sussex Insurance Group. You mentioned earlier in the slides about the BC mortgage rates. When the interest rates go up and down, it impacts BC more than other provinces because the variance. So do you expect with the interest rate cuts and further maybe to come, that would help the BC housing market stabilize and prices increase more than the rest of Canada?
I'll give you two numbers that will shock you. The average mortgage payment in BC is $2,800. In New Brunswick is $1,200. And I can give you all the provinces, but by far BC is the highest. So when you increase interest rate, no doubt, the biggest impact was BC, Ontario, Alberta, Quebec, and the rest of the country. The good news is now that interest rate is going down, well, a lot of people will be relieved by that. And the real estate market will pick up again. We don't expect the price will go crazy like it did in 2020 or 2021, when prices increased by 40%. We're not in that market. First of all, prices are much more elevated than they were. Also, growth in the economy is not the same. So, but as interest rates are going down, population is still growing. We still have immigration, despite the fact that we have lower level. So the demand for housing is still strong. So we should expect that prices will continue to move up, but in a more reasonable way, 2 or 3, 4% a year, not 40% a year like we saw in 2021.
Any other questions from the audience? Okay, I'll ask one more of mine. So what do you think, apart from tariffs, trade wars, what are the biggest risks and what are the biggest opportunities for Canadian businesses in the next 5-10 years?
I would say that the risk is there's a lot of uncertainty around the world, a lot of geopolitical issues around the world. We are lucky in Canada, we were protected against most of it. The war in Ukraine didn't have an impact on Canada, not much an impact, not like in Europe, for example, it really slowed down the European economy. The war in the Middle East didn't have an impact here, so we have been lucky. But what we see is there's more uncertainty. I think the risks that we have as business people to learn how to live with more certainty than in the past. I think that's the new reality. Having said that, there's still a lot of opportunities. Our economy has been strong in the past, will be strong in the future. There's a lot, the fundamentals, like I said, are strong. So we'll continue to grow, but it might be a bumpy road in the future. And a lot of sectors are still growing. Technology is still a sector. There's a lot of opportunities, technology with AI and beside AI. So there's still a lot of opportunities. but it will be a bit more uncertainty that we have to deal with as business people.
Thank you very much. Everyone, a round of applause for Pierre. Thank you. And thank you everyone for your thoughtful questions and for being here today. Thank you once again to our sponsors, our lunch sponsor, Invest Vancouver, a service of Metro Vancouver, our supporting sponsor, BDC, the Business Development Bank of Canada, our progress partners, Chamber of Commerce Group Insurance Plan by S&F Benefits, the law firm of Faskin, Focus College, and Western Community College. These sponsors make events like this possible. Thank you very much. Now, before you leave, I do want to take this opportunity to remind you of some important upcoming events. On February 5th, we have the Business in Surrey member induction here at the Sheraton. On February 11th is an Impact Learning Lab on doing business in the US. February 12th is an after-work mixer at the White Rock Museum and Archives, featuring a special exhibit for Black History Month. February 25th is an Impact Learning Lab on modern strategies for effective networking. And February 26th is a discussion on Metro Vancouver's economic future with the chairs of Metro Vancouver and TransLink's Mayor's Council. For more details on these events and others, visit our website, businessinsurrey.com. And I also want to take this moment to thank the Surrey Board of Trade staff for making amazing events like this happen, specifically Heather Booth and Rona Doria. Thank you very much. And thank you all for attending. Make it a great business day.